Hello, everybody. Welcome to the My Dead Dragon podcast. As always, I am just so grateful that you're here and tuning in and spending this time with me and my guest. And I want to thank you for your support of the podcast. It really does mean the world to me. And I'm really excited to be in conversation today with Rachel Hansen. Sorry, Rachel, just had a drink of water, but obviously didn't do his job. And Rachel, can you start us out by sharing a little bit about yourself and then your story and kind of how you came to the point of realizing that you actually had the choice to become the main character and heroine of your own life?
Yeah, absolutely. And first off, I just want to share that as I tell my story, I feel like I myself am in a work in progress. And I was just telling Katherine, telling you that I like the soul's in progress because it feels like we're always in progress. And so as I introduce myself and say I'm an independent contractor. I work with small businesses who need help with systems and processes, et cetera. But I'm also a mother, and motherhood integrates with what I do every single day. And I'm also transitioning right now and relaunching or repositioning my business in June to really help bring business owners and job candidates together and do something together that's extraordinary, really. I mean, to be partners. So who I am is something that I struggle to share whenever I'm asked for that, for the introduction. There are so many things, and I think everyone can relate to that. I mean, I think we're all more than what we can say in 30 seconds or so. But first and foremost, I'm a mom, and then integrating that with creating this new career direction that I've been on for the last few years.
Okay, Rachel, I love that because I too, up until now, have a little bit of a like when people say like, well, what do you do? It's like, okay, well, there's like all of this, right? And we are all so much more than the kind of singular point that maybe we're interacting with someone. So I love that you kind of brought that right out to the forefront. So I'm curious, Rachel, how did you realize, okay, no one's coming to save me. It's up to me. I've got a choice. I'm making that choice. I'm deciding I'm going to become the main character of my story. What did that look like for you?
Yeah, it was really at the end of a long process. And I think sometimes people have these moments where all of a sudden the lights come on and it's this flash of awareness. And for me, it was really about 10 years ago, I decided I wanted to change my life. And so I quit my job impulsively, and I moved up here to Portland, where I'm at right now, or the Vancouver, Washington, and was and it really started me in a direction that wasn't what I intended. And so 10 years passed, and 3 years ago now, actually 2 years ago, I came to the end of my last employment. And I believe it will be my last employment forever, because I finally, it was a moment where I thought, this is not what I want to do anymore. But then there I was, unemployed. I have 3 children, 2 of which were still at home. All of a sudden, everything hit me that, what am I going to do? And it also hit me that now I don't know that I can go back into the work, for a variety of reasons. I seemed to be overqualified for jobs that were easy to get, but then underqualified for the ones that would pay me what I needed to live. And so there I was. And really, it's a common story, but I think anyone that goes through it can recognize and can understand the terror that happens. I mean, you really are all of a sudden, especially I was early to mid 40s 2 years ago. Now I'm officially in my mid 40s. And all of a sudden, from the outside, it might not seem like that big of a deal, but when you're in that spot, and I'm a single mom, I mean, I think sometimes that single mom phrase gets a certain stigma that I stay away from it, but it's something actually I'm pretty proud of, the fact that that here, I'm a single mom, but here I am now, 2 years ago, and what am I going to do? And I was really paralyzed. I felt, I was pretty depressed for the first few months and not knowing what to do. And then to get to the answer, basically, I realized exactly what you're saying is that no one is going to come save me. There is nothing. It's either I do something or literally am I going to be homeless one day? Am I going to be, how can I put food on the table for my kids? And I also recognized I'm not going to get out of this in the traditional sense. I mean, I'm going to have to really recreate myself or do something, very creative. I have no funding. I have no, by that point, to be completely transparent, by that point, my credit was shot. I mean, my car was breaking down. I mean, you name it. And, there it was. So that was 2 years ago. And that's when I decided, no, I'm not going down without a fight on this one. So, yeah.
Wow. And so, okay, so like you've shared kind of a bit of a timeline there. So 10 years ago, spontaneously quitting your job. Okay, for whatever reason, I'm done with this thing, moving into something else, and then transitioning out and realizing, okay, that is not for me. And I can relate to that. I joke that I'm unemployable. I think I'm probably not, but have been in the entrepreneurial space for so long and recognizing the fit, right? Like, where is the fit for you? And so for you, finding yourself in this place of kind of between a rock and a hard place. And really, okay, on this, on this one hand, if I continue to go in this direction, it could turn out to be like literally homeless. And I've got 3 kids and it's all on me. And so in that moment, or maybe there was a series of moments, like you had choices about, am I going to, kind of wish and hope that something changes? Am I going to kind of do a little bit of like, la, 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 like this isn't happening, or, everything's okay? Or am I actually going to like face it square in the face, or look it square in the face and say, okay, I am changing things. So help me kind of dissect those pieces there, right? And how you decided to move in this direction of really redesigning your life.
Right. I think it was a realization that exactly what you're saying. I can either distract myself or I can look at it and say, okay, I'm going to have to make some moves. And I think more than anything, it was just being aware of the fact that if I don't do anything, nothing will happen. If I don't do anything, nothing will change. And I also recognized the way that I had an analogy at the time. I thought to myself, it's funny because when I did quit my job 10 years before, I initially did want to go out on my own. I wanted to have my own business. And I think over time, what I was doing was keeping one hand or one foot on the shore, so to speak. And I was too afraid to make the jump.
Yeah.
So what ended up happening is if I had one foot on the shore and one foot in a boat, I just kept, splitting further and further away. And so in this time period, a few years ago, what I recognized all of a sudden was I'm in the boat and I'm already out in the ocean, and I don't know that I can go back at this point. And maybe this is what I wanted. Maybe this is the push. But now I'm afraid. And now what if? And then it's the self-doubt that just absolutely took me over. Like what did I do? I don't know what I'm doing. So. Then when I recognized, and really it was that analogy that I had in my head, I'm all the way out here in the ocean. Like, I don't think.
Yeah. And there's like a part of me that's still trying to hang on to the shore.
Right. And so I thought, to be honest, in the beginning, I really didn't know what to do. So I'll tell you what I did, which sounds so silly at this point. But I had a friend who was selling used clothes. She would go and she would buy clothing and then resell it, which is actually a really cool thing. It's part of the circular economy and everything. But so I started doing that. And the reason I say it's silly is that doing it as is actually really cool in terms of participating and reuse of things and
Mm-hmm.
everything. But to jump into it and think that it's going to make a full-time income, it's not going to make an, an immediate full-time income. But boy,
Yeah.
I put my all into that for about 3 or 4 months. And then, it was just like one little thing at a time. And then
Mm.
I was able to do Lyft, drive. And every little thing that I did, as I look back, I think, I was so lost. I really didn't know what to do. But as I look back, it was every single one of those steps that led me to something. And every single step, I met people, I learned lessons. I mean, it was really, now I'm pretty grateful to have taken the steps so far.
Mm. So, what was it that kept you from going back to a job?
It was a few things. Early on, within about a week after my job ended, my daughter and I made. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie or heard the movie Ratatouille. Uh,
Yeah, I have.
yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, it was one at the time. It was one of her favorites. We had watched it over and over. And my daughter, at the time, she was 8, and
Mm.
so we had talked for a long time about making ratatouille. And a few weeks after I quit, it's kind of a funny story. I sort of quit, but then also kind of let go. It's a so anyway. We made ratatouille, and there which for me, I'm not really a cook. I try, but I'm not a great cook. So we went out, we got the stuff, we looked up a recipe, we did it together, and I have a picture of it. And it was one of those moments where I realized
Mm.
when I was working, that would have been, even had I done it, it would have been so stressful. And
Mm.
just this was a big reason why the job ended, in fact. Just not having a flexible schedule, not feeling
Mm.
like I had to apologize if I had to leave early and get my children.
Mm.
And to be fair to the employer, with 2 kids, and I did have to. I needed a flexible schedule, and
Mm.
so it wasn't really, no blame on them. But the fact of the matter is that there was no way that I was going to go back to a situation where I felt like I had to apologize for being the mother that
Mm.
I want to be.
Yeah. I Wow, Rachel, right? And I really celebrate the fact that you were able to be fully present for what, might seem like a simple moment, and yet that's what life is all about, right? And to be able to recognize, okay, this is actually what is filling my cup right now.
Yes, and social connections too.
Mm.
Motherhood is the number one. But I just remember too, the very next day that after I wasn't employed anymore, and I just felt this such a sense of freedom, and I got to go have
Mm.
coffee with a friend in the middle of the day, and tell her everything, and she told me everything, and we caught up. And I didn't worry about getting back at a certain time. I didn't worry about explaining myself when I got back. I mean, it was just this feeling of I just get to have coffee and connect with someone. And so
Yeah.
there's freedom in that, the little things.
Mm. And I love too how it sounds like you're really consciously creating a life where it's a both and. So I can have that, entrepreneurial business experience, the financial wherewithal to support my family in the way that I would love to, and I can have the freedom and flexibility around my schedule.
Exactly, exactly. And that is exactly what I'd like to help other people find too. And I think
Mm.
the entrepreneurial route is not for everyone. I mean, I have had some
Hmm.
that I've thought to
It's
myself,
not.
wow, yeah. And there was a whole time period. I would say it's been a few years now, and it's only been recently that I've even really gotten a hold of managing my own time. And that's funny because, in working, I thought that I managed my own time. But the reality is that you go into the office around a certain time in the morning and you leave around a certain time in the evening. And even if you're texting and emailing, after hours, there's still a certain structure to it. And so, as you know, all of the sudden getting into a situation where there is absolutely no structure. It's completely up
Mm-hmm.
to you. And then boundaries too, not
Yeah.
saying no when you're, so at any rate, I think that it's not for everyone, but there are also ways that people in jobs, I mean, people who do want to be employed, there's a whole different structure out there where you can work with people, with mothers, with people who have
Mm.
schedule needs, et cetera. And so now I'm really wanting to help people put together that sort of partnership.
I love that. Yeah, and that can definitely be a challenge with having your own business and being an entrepreneur and really not just in that, but in creating a life that you love is actually consciously designing your life and your calendar. And you can see for those of you who are watching the video, if you're listening to the audio, I'm pointing behind me. You can see the corner of my calendar, and it's really okay. What is this year going to look like? What is my time going to look like? What is my life going to look like? And there is a rigor to that in really asking yourself, what would I love? Would I love, time off here? Would I love to kind of like have a lot of work here? What would I really love? And then to really create the structure and the rigor around being accountable to that.
And
So,
I, yeah,
oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just saying, I think it's a completely, it's a mind shift. I think that's something that we don't even recognize when we're going through the 9 to 5 kind of schedule that we get to have a say about that.
Yeah,
We get to design our lives around
yeah.
how we want to spend our time. And it's an amazing awareness when it hits you.
Yeah, it's like this kind of like boom, right? This mic drop in your head, and not just your time, but your entire life, and really, and that's the work. Of course, if you're a listener of the podcast, it's what would you love to create? What would you love to create? And it is really a mindset shift in recognizing, okay, I've been kind of buying into these patterns and structures, and to be able to really identify and discern, like, well, does it work for me? Do I love it? Because sometimes, like, it's a big heck yes, this totally works for me. I was talking with a friend the other day, and she's like, I could never be an entrepreneur. Like, I love having a job. That really, really works for me. So it's not that there's one right way. It's about what works for you. And I love, Rachel, that you're talking about and supporting people to really to be able to kind of identify, well, what is that for you? And then how do you create some flexibility and flow around your structure and your schedule if that's what you would love.
Right, right.
So did you have guides, mentors, coaches along the way that helped you navigate the journey, or were you kind of just trying to figure it out on your own?
No, in fact, I'm very fortunate to have, I'm close to my mom. And so
Mm,
she was someone that gave me a huge amount of support. I mean, she's, I think, probably my biggest fan, as someone that I can always go to get encouragement. But no, in fact, I've searched for people that what I needed at the time a few years ago was I needed to know that there was someone out there that was like me who had gotten out of
mm,
it, that someone was out
mm,
there who was at the point where, again, they didn't have any savings. They had, all of these conflicting
yeah.
needs. And I am sure, I'm positive that person is out there, but there's a reason why we don't hear about them. There's
Mm,
a competition for voices out there, and there's Google
mm,
algorithms, and for all kinds of different reasons. We only end up hearing from a certain group of people usually. And
mm,
I hadn't, and that scared me. I thought, in my mind, I don't think it's possible. I don't think it's possible to get where I want to go. You hear about
mm,
people who, I'd open up these stories that I'd see online. So and so single mom goes from nothing to this company that's been successful. Well, it turns out they had, at least some funding or
mm,
something. And I thought, oh my
mm.
gosh, and that in itself is something to celebrate. That in itself is
Yeah.
something. But it leaves when you don't feel like you have those, or when you don't have those resources, you are sort of left thinking, oh boy,
I'm
I really am.
pooched.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know what
I'm
I'm going to
SOL
do.
here.
Yeah, so I think it takes redefining,
Yeah.
and then there are different people that have great advice, and those absolutely along the way. Just reading my former employer, I looked up to her a lot. She was also a mother and had created her own business and was doing very well. So I mean, there were people that I looked to, but no one that I felt like I really needed at that time.
It is, I love that you bring that up, Rachel, that there can often be this perception and or not all of the stories and voices being heard, and to really truly know that you can come from nothing or less than nothing, and you can change that. You can change that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd like to, I think that's why things like what you're doing is important to get out too. I think people do need to hear it. I think people are oftentimes, we don't even know they're out there because they're quiet, because
Mm-hmm.
they're overwhelmed and
Mm-hmm.
they are
Yeah.
hopeless. And so I think that is helpful. And also recognizing that, everyone has a different story. So I know that I have things that were helpful to me that maybe, we all have these different resource piles and different uh, things that are feeling like they're kind of going against us at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I think that anything that's hopeful is helpful.
Mm. Yeah, and really teaching your mind to look for the hopeful,
Yes.
because
Yeah.
there's a whole lot of all of it out there. So we really do get to choose what to focus on, and not to dismiss or diminish how challenging it can be. And I've been there myself, when you're in that place of really being in you know maybe rock bottom, maybe just off rock bottom.
hmm
Yeah.
Yeah, and on that note, I do remember, when you ask if there were any coaches or mentors or anyone, I will say that it was in these little moments with people. It might be a bank teller or
Mm.
and that you run across. There were several times, I have to admit, where I would get off of the phone or end a conversation with someone and just feel tears welling up because I thought,
Mm.
in those moments, I was so worried. I felt so, I was feeling like a failure. I mean, I was feeling,
Mm.
and it's amazing the small little things that someone can say that really do either give you hope or kind of shift your perspective in that moment. It could
Yeah.
be something as simple as a podcast, or running into someone
Mm.
at the store. So, yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I one of the things I have my clients do, and so all of you listeners, here's a little hint for you. Super super powerful strategy is to actually keep, so a gratitude journal, of course, but also a wins or proud of journal. And so when you do that, you're every day you're tracking like where you feel like a success, where maybe you felt supported, where you felt encouraged, where you felt hopeful. And when you do that, you start to actually train your mind to look for more of those things. And then the more of those things that you see and experience, the better you feel. And the better you feel, you're going to take a different action. You're more optimistic, you're more hopeful, you're able to keep going. And so those things like, wow, that bank teller was really supportive. Or the other week I put my back out chipping ice, because it's still the land of snow and ice where I am. And I had to go get dog food, and the teller carried the dog food out for me, and it brought me to tears. It was such a simple thing, but that absolutely went in my win journal for that day. So I love that,
Yes.
really acknowledging those little things, right? Because those little things are going to help to feed your faith that you can do this.
Yes. And I think that's so important to even to pause on and really absorb because it really is amazing to me. I know I've already used that word, but it really is amazing the power that people have. We think about
Mm,
all these big things that we can do, all these retreats that we might be able to go to and everything, but the power that truly that each of us has and those small little moments
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
forgiveness or kindness or
Yeah.
encouragement, something.
Yeah. Yeah. It is quite profound when you think about it. Yeah. So Rachel, what is your kind of like next level on your, and we were talking about this in the pre-show, that we're always in progress, right? We are on this journey of growth and expansion and becoming, and as we become, there's more there because we're growing, we're experiencing. And so what does that next level look like for you?
Yeah, well, it's funny. The other day I was thinking, I was talking to someone about what they were doing, and I was giving them some pointers, and they said I want to be doing what you're doing. I want to
Mm.
be able to support myself and also have a flexible schedule and everything. And I stopped and I thought, oh my gosh, that's right. I'm doing what I set out to do. You
I'm
know,
doing it. Oh my gosh.
yeah, here I am. I can't believe it. And
Oh.
then, and the reason that I kind of laughed about it was because I forgot that, because now, exactly, now I'm wanting to do
Mm.
something more. And so now
Yeah.
I'm moving ahead. So my next step is well, there's a gap here that I need to fill, first of all.
Yeah.
So what I decided a few years ago was, after trying the lift, and then I started the optimized office, um, offering the consultation to small business owners, and working. So I've been doing that for the last few years, and it's been amazing. I've been doing these, like, all these different things I didn't intend to do, but I've been doing, and it's been great. And along the way, though, I realized I really should go back and get my MBA. So I started that,
Mm.
wrapping it up here in the next 6 months. And
Mm.
then I'll have that. And when I first got it, I thought to myself, I really need it, because some of the recommendations that I've given to small business owners, they they have, this has happened a few times, wanted to take it to someone with an MBA, to have them look over. So I thought I need to
Mm.
get my MBA so that they know. And I thought I'd probably have some stuff to know, to learn. Obviously we all
Mhm.
do,
Mhm.
but I didn't realize how much I had to learn. I didn't realize how much I didn't know. so then I
Mm.
so here I am going through the program, and going through the MBA program itself has really shifted the direction that I want to go. So
Mm.
now, again, this is a very recent decision that I've come to, but the next step is, I truly want to have some impact on the way that workplaces are structured. And when I
Mm.
look back over my life, it's been a constant thing that I've been aware of, is how, there's this parental type of relationship between
Mm.
employers and employees. And
Mhm.
in some cases, that's a necessity. But I think that there are many cases where, um, if you have more of a partnership model, and you have an employer and an employee who come together, and you consciously decide what's a mutually beneficial situation,
Mm.
and put that together, then it it benefits everyone.
Mhm.
And I think it can also take people who with non-traditional backgrounds, who have had gaps in their resume due to motherhood, like me, or other reasons. There's all kinds of things out there.
Yeah.
But people who would be really good at working with one particular employer, then it'll be this shared value, well, where the business owner, or the business,
Mm.
benefiting, the employees benefiting. So that's my next step. That's my
Mm.
my next step. Is in June is my deadline for myself to have, the optimized office be really repositioned to be able to help with that.
Oh, that sounds amazing. That sounds really amazing, and love that. Yeah, really that partnership model and where that's applicable and relevant. And so tell me a little bit more about what you do with Optimized Office.
Well, I'll tell you, the way I started it was to go in and help small businesses, streamline their processes, get all of their, get everything together. The idea is that, and the office is like a hub. And so everything runs through, whether you're a product business, you have products going through, you've through the hub, whether you're manufacturing, everything goes through. And I think the office gets neglected for a variety of reasons. For one thing, it's been business has been changing over the last 20 years even. And so the office has become more, it's become a different place. So if I can go in and help streamline processes, then it impacts the whole company. And so when I went in for the first business owner that I worked with, we basically figured out how we can maximize the existing revenue streams while he decided to exit out of the business over the next few years. And so really get him set up in all aspects of getting it ready for sale and everything.
Wow.
That's one example. But then recently I'm working with, in fact, I'm really excited. I'm working with a company, bespoke travel company out of Hawaii. And what they're doing is going for their B certification, which is B is benefits, the benefit corporation. And so I've just been helping to get processes in place to accomplish that. So it's been
fun.
Yeah, just all kinds of
Very
different
fun.
things. And that's what I love about it, is that it's always something a little bit new and different.
Oh, very cool. That sounds really exciting.
Yeah, it is. And the people, I mean, again, it comes back to, the question that you asked keeps coming back to my mind. Have you had any coaches or any people? And I think it keeps coming back to my mind. I'm kind of mulling it over in the back of my mind because I'm thinking it seems like everyone really
Yeah.
I mean, it's a funny answer. On the one hand, there was no one that fit what I really needed at that moment. But on the other hand, it's like everyone sort of has some impact
Yeah. Yeah, if we're open to it, right? If we're open to it and to really gleaning the learning and recognizing what's there for us. And so Rachel, if you had any words of wisdom or advice or a message for maybe yourself when you were going through that process, left your job, no money, how am I going to support my kids? Like, what am I going to do here? So maybe for yourself or for another woman who's listening, what might that be?
Yeah, I absolutely. And not only just that situation, but, I think that we all have stories, of challenges that we might not want to share. And so do I. I think everyone does. And I think for those times as well, what I would, sometimes I think back to myself during that period and other periods of my life. And I think, if I could just go back and say, just take the steps. I mean, just take number one, the next day is going to come. And so you can one great piece of advice I got during a particularly difficult time where I had to make some hard decisions. And this woman that I barely knew, she said, you can either take these hard steps now, or in a year from now, you're going to have to take them anyway, or a year from then, and the time is going to continue to go by. So you get to decide when you take those steps. And that's something that I try to remember too. And
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, right. Like time is passing us by and
Yeah.
none of us knows how long we have, and not taking the step, not deciding is still a decision. It's still a step.
Right.
And is it the step in the direction that you want to go, or is it the step in a different direction?
Yeah. And exactly. And the other thing too, now that the biggest piece of advice I would give myself, which would be great for some people and maybe not the best advice for everyone, is as I look back over time, I was really fighting myself because I was fighting what I felt I really wanted to do, which was to branch out on my own a long time ago. I had these, and I always had this feeling like I need to follow the rules. I need to follow, there's this set way to do things. And part of it is getting a 9-to-5 job. Part of it is saying these certain things, being the certain way. And if I had one thing to say, and I've told my kids this now, I have a 21-year-old and an 18-year-old. I've said early on, go ahead and take chances early on, and go ahead and just, what they say, lean in. And because ultimately I think what happens is that if you don't follow what you're pulled to follow, I do
Mm-hmm.
believe that you end up in conflict and not getting as far as you could had if you just
Yeah.
decide I might feel lost right now, but I'm going to start heading in the direction, at least in exploring where it is I
Mm.
feel pulled to go.
I love that. That's fantastic advice. And really tuning into what is, what is that whisper? What is that pull? Where do I feel more expansive? What kind of, lights me up? What brings me joy? And just take a step in that direction. And so Rachel, for people who would love to connect, how can they find you? And of course, for my listeners, all of this info will be in the show notes as well.
Yeah, I think the best way is on LinkedIn. I'm speaking of leaning in. I'm really leaning into connecting more. I tend to be, more introverted, and so that's something that I'm
Mm.
working on right now. So LinkedIn is a place that I'm trying to really more meaningfully connect with people.
Okay. And so I will put that in the show notes. And it's Rachel, Rachel Hansen, Hansen, for people who are listening and can't access the show notes right now. And so Rachel, I want to thank you so much for this conversation, for sharing your story with me, for being open. And also I want to celebrate you for stepping up and for showing up for yourself. And to all my listeners, as always, thank you so much for your support. I so appreciate you. And I want you to know that you deserve to live a life that you love, and you are absolutely capable of that.